The LA Thieves just officially announced that Dan Ghosty and Dylan Envoy are no longer a part of LA Thieves. And I'm pretty sad to see them go because both of these guys have played a big part in the LA Thieves history. Obviously, with Envoy, he, in my opinion, should be part of the LA Thieves Hall of Fame, as there's only Kenny and Octane. And at this point, he is pretty much at the same level as both of those guys when it comes to their reign on the Thieves. He's up to, if I'm not mistaken, 5 wins now under the LAT umbrella. So to me, he is more than deserving to be a part of the Thieves Hall of Fame. And it just hurts to see a guy like that go. Obviously, we saw him leave when the original champs team was splitting apart, and Octane had his retirement, and then Kenny and Draza went to Optic and FaZe, and then Envoy ended up going off to Ultra, where he paired with Scrap. And that, I mean, it sucked then. It sucked then to see him go, and it was, obviously not a great time for the Thieves fans, but it was great to see him come back to the team, and I was so excited because it just felt right. I mean, maybe it's just the idea of anytime there's a Thieves player that we all kind of get used to, it just feels right to have him on the team. But I mean, we called him the Dark Prince for a reason, man. He's such a big part of this team's history, and I just, in some regard, I wanted to say, thank you to him, thank you to Ghosty as well. But he just was such a big part of this team, and is such a big part of this team, that I think he deserves the recognition. I think he didn't get the best of treatment at the end of this season, and I think he deserved a little better from some of the fans, in my opinion, because I think he played great this year, and it sucks that the Thieves are moving on from him, and I'm wishing him the best of luck in the future. I'm so glad I got to actually meet him this season, as well as meet his family, because his family is fantastic as well. So, shout out to the Envoys. They're great people. But as I mentioned earlier, with Envoy moving on to Toronto Ultra in the past, we ended up getting Dan Ghosty during that year. And he's another guy, as we mentioned, is no longer a part of the Thieves. And I know, and I've said this multiple times, when the Thieves split up after that champs roster, and it was announced that Octane was retiring, my number one choice on who to fill in, because at that point we didn't know if they were going to keep the roster and just try to fill Octane's spot, or if they were completely wiping the slate clean and starting new. And to me, I felt like Ghosty was the perfect fit to fill in for Octane. And I knew right away, once he announced that he was retiring, I said, Ghosty needs to be the Thieves' #1 target. When I found out that he was being brought onto the Thieves, I couldn't believe it. I was so happy that they actually went after this guy and were able to get him. And he became basically the face of the team for that Modern Warfare 3 season. He did so much that year. He was the guy, and everything about him was just awesome. Like, he's a great player. He's so smart, very young, had a lot of upside, still has a lot of upside potential. And he took on the challenge of dealing with a rebuild. Everyone knew going into that season that it was going to be an uphill battle, and he was willing to take that on after having been brought up into a really good system with Optic the year prior. So I gave him a ton of props for that, and he took everything in stride. Like, it was not the easiest of years, definitely not the worst of years, that's for sure, but it was not an easy year. A lot of roster changes throughout that time, and he was one of the only consistent play, if not the only consistent player. Obviously Joe was up and down, but at that point, Ghosty was the only guy who stayed on the roster the entire season. And to his credit, he was a beast that year. He deserved it, and he had a lot of big moments throughout the year that I feel like kind of led to the Thieves being able to grow the way they did that season, and in some regard allowed them to come up with the roster that they did this past year. So I give a ton of credit to him, and that season was so impactful for me personally. That was the first time I ever got to do an interview with a player. I got to meet the team, and when I met them, and more specifically Ghosty, he was a great person. I said it on Twitter earlier that he's a great player and even better person, and he, treated me with the utmost respect every time I went to the compound and he was there. So I have so much thanks for him, because I know for me personally, when I got to do that interview with him, that was a really big spark in this channel personally. Like it definitely, I saw some growth when it came to getting to sit down and talk with him. And it was really cool to get to pick his brain, because obviously I had never been able to do that. And I never expected myself to be in a position to do that. And so, without him, I would have never gotten that opportunity. I would have never gotten the opportunity to then go on to interview Crimp and LAThieves as well. And kind of, I feel like, have some of the players recognize my name and recognize me. So I give so much thanks and so much credit to Ghosty for that season. And then obviously this last year, like he had his ups and downs, but I think he played a fantastic season, the best OBJ player in the game. I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due. And even if there were moments throughout the season that maybe statistically, like kill wise, he wasn't the best, I mean, he was the best OBJ player in the game, and you got to give him his credit. I think he did a fantastic job pairing with a player like Scrap, and he was able to get his first chip under the Thieves banner. So I'm more than happy for him. And selfishly, as a Thieves fan, I'm so glad he was able to get his first under the Thieves. Ended up going back to back. It really is just kind of unfortunate how the end of the year ended up going, because I felt like this team could last. I felt like this team could go on for a couple of years, maybe make some minor adjustments, but only having 1 year with this team really sucks. And I'm obviously excited to see what's next for both Ghosty and Envoy, as well as for the Thieves. And I know personally I'm going to be rooting for both Dan and Dill wherever it is that they go. I know there's rumors of where they're at, but so far nothing is confirmed to my knowledge. So I'm going to be rooting for them wherever. To me, they're always going to be a Thief player. I'm always going to look at them as Thieves. And I'm so glad that they got to be a part of this organization. But yeah, I genuinely can't say thank you enough, like I said, for how both of these guys may have impacted me personally, as well as just impacted the organization. I know there's a lot of Thieves fans out there who have nothing but good things to say about you guys and how great you were on this team. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I appreciate everything that you guys were able to do for LA Thieves. And like I said, I wish nothing but the best.